Right, today we're going to be looking at security precautions, specifically firewalls and encryption. I'm going to start with firewalls, but before we actually get to that, we're going to do a little bit of background information, and that's what an IP address is, because it does come up with firewalls. It stands for Internet Protocol, and think of it like a return address on a letter. So you send a letter to someone and you say where it came from. Every device on the internet has its own IP address, although and they are unique, but it's not determined quite by a device, it's determined by a location. So by that we mean if you have, let's say you have a laptop, right? And you're sitting in your house and you're connected to your network, it will have its own IP address. But if you take that laptop somewhere else and then you connect to that network, the IP address is going to change. Same way, the network itself, if there's 4 laptops on it, so if you've got 4 laptops in your house or phones or whatever, each one is going to have its unique IP address. So they're all going to be very similar, but like the last little bit will be different, so you can tell them apart. And that's what an IP address is. Whenever a communication is made online, whenever an email is sent, and I say message here, but it could be whenever a website is sent or a file is sent, it's split into thousands of data packets. And they're all going to get to your computer eventually. This is why it's not just one big packet. It's when you download something, for example, why there's a 0 to 100% bar, it's how much data packets you're getting in. They can all take different routes. Some of them take weird routes. And the same way that we can walk somewhere, or you can drive somewhere, or you can take the train somewhere, data packets can just take weird routes themselves. I don't really know what determines that, but they can take different routes. So some can just go straight there, some can take roundabout ones, and some can just take stupid routes. But they will all get there eventually, and if they are lost, there's rules in place to resend them. And their destination is your IP address, which marks where you are at that moment. Now, also included on the data packet is the IP address of who it is from. So you know if it's from a trusted person. So if you try to download something, it will say, like, that place will have its own IP address and it will be trusted. Now, the trust comes in when we're talking about firewalls. Firewalls are they're made to look for unauthorized users, or you could say hackers, from accessing a private network. So if you download something, you've agreed to download it from there. So the firewall will let you download it. But if for some reason you're also getting messages from another IP address or multiple IP addresses, your firewall will block it out. It's not trusted. Why have you just suddenly got all these messages sent? They could actually be malware of some sort. So there's a list of rules for them to actually check that it is the correct IP address, and if it isn't, they'll block it. Better to be safe than sorry. Usually it's for the best, because if you haven't agreed to receive this file, why is it being sent to you, for example? So they will block the message. They won't send it back, just block it. And they can be downloaded. Firewalls can be downloaded or built into your router. Just an extra point that you might need to know. And this is basically the exam answer. You don't have to write all of this, but for 2 marks it comes up, it'll say, what is a firewall? And you have to say, firewalls are used to stop unauthorized users from accessing a private network. And it says it blocks messages, unwanted messages from these users. And that's pretty much the exam answer. Right. Next part is encryption. So encryption, it's just used to protect your data, and it uses some sort of algorithm. It's a really complicated algorithm to scramble your data so it becomes unreadable. The only way you can read it is if somebody tells you the key to unscramble it, and then it's only given to that person. I mean, there is a chance that a hacker could get access to the key and then try to unscramble, not sure what the word is, your message. But obviously that's not what's meant to happen. So think of it like a lock and a key. You scramble it, it's locked, and then you send it to someone and you say, right, here is my locked message, but here is the key to access it as well. Again, this is pretty much the exam answer. If it comes up, I think again it's 2 marks. What is encryption? You just say it's used to protect data. It scrambles your data to protect it and make it unreadable, and you need a key to access it. That's 2 marks. You'll know a website is encrypted if you see this padlock or if you've got an S after. So this stands for Hypertext Transfer Protocol, and the S stands for secure. And if there's a padlock, it means it's secure as well. Sometimes you go into a website, it doesn't have this, which means it's not sending encrypted data. So you should never, not saying that the site is necessarily run by scammers, it might be, but if you don't have this padlock here, or if there's a cross through it, don't enter your bank details or anything like that. That is not a secure connection, and you can get hacked that way. Right, we're going to be talking about the Caesar cipher. So encryption is very complicated in computers, and I'll get back to that in a second. But when it was first used, it was used in times of war, and it was Julius Caesar that invented it, and it's quite a basic version of encryption he used, but at the time no one else really thought of it, so no one could crack it. So it has 25 possible combinations. That's 1 combination for every letter of the alphabet. Now I know there's 26 letters in the alphabet. It will make sense why you can't get 26 combinations in a second. So let's say you have a +3 Caesar cipher, and you got this message from someone, DEF. So what Julius Caesar would do is he would get messengers to send kind of army coordination battle plans across places, and he would tell the messenger the key. He would say, right, the key is this, +3. Now, if that messenger made it to whoever he's meant to get to, they would tell the receiver, right, this is the key. If the messenger got caught, they wouldn't say it. That's the idea. They would trust him not to say it if he got caught. I don't know, maybe some people got kind of cracked and told to say it, but the idea was if a messenger got caught, they wouldn't say what the key is, and it would just look like gibberish what they've got. So if they sent DEF by, for example, +3, well, you would just go back, and that's just ABC. That's all that is. Each letter has been bumped up 3 places. We're actually going to try doing this ourselves. So this is the most simple type of encryption, just to get an idea behind it. And so you'll need a pen and paper for this. I've done it in a lot of steps, just so it makes complete sense what I'm doing. It looks like there's about 15 steps, but it's just because I've broken them up so small. So the first thing you've got to do is get a bit of paper and just write out the alphabet, just like that. Then you have to write out your code. So the first one we're going to do is +2, and the first couple questions I've got on the quiz is also +2. So you just do this to remind yourself. I don't know why it's n+2, it just is. So you write +2 to keep yourself right, and then you go to A, right, and you count 2 spaces. So if it was +6, you would count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 spaces, but this is +2, so we just go 1, 2, and you land on C. And then you just, because you've counted up, I mean, you could even do this in your head, you just go, what's A, 2 letters long? Because you've counted up 2 spaces, you write C here, and then you just write the rest of the alphabet like that. Notice when you get to Z, you loop back round, so you write A and then B. So we've got our alphabet, that's the cipher complete, so make sure you've got that first before moving on. So just write that out. Now you want to decrypt the message. So let's say you've got the message BME, just a short one to start with. First, just write down your message to keep yourself right. Now you have to go to the top row. If you go to the bottom row, this is not going to work, because yeah, it's the top. You always decrypt it by starting at the top row and working down. If you do it the other way, nothing's going to work. So you go to B, What's under B? Well, it's the letter D, so you write it down, and that's it. Well, you can probably guess what you do for M. So you get to M. Oh, what's under M? It's O. You write O. You get to E. What's under E? It's G. Believe it or not, the message says dog, and that is how you decrypt a message. So I'll come back to this in a second. Where is it? So in the quiz, you'll need to get a pen and paper to work this out. Maybe not the first one, it's pretty easy. So decrypt this message, AYR. Again, it's +2. So you would add 2 to A, so that would be C, and then you just keep going that way. And you can probably work out what it is just from that. So we've got 4 options, only 2 of them start with C, and 1 of them is way too many letters. So this one is quite obviously cat. And then when you get to, like, you can even check it when you get to Y. What's 2 letters? Well, Y plus up 1 is Z, but then you go back around to A, it's going to spell cat. And then this one is +2 as well, and then this one is +6. So like I said, you have to make a new cipher, but count, where is it? You count 6 spaces along instead. So you should start off with G, and then you write G there and write the rest of your alphabet. And that's how you do a Caesar cipher. Now, it does take a little getting used to. It's not the most complicated thing. It's only got 25 combinations. But why am I talking about this? So it is the first example of encryption. But we've got a lot more combinations now. So we keep talking about bits all the time and numbers that represent, I can't even remember what 64-bit, like how many combinations that is off the top of my head. I know it's a ridiculous amount, but it was cracked in 2002. So what we use now is 128-bit encryption. And if it's a government project, and I mean in like a Pentagon project, so I don't know if the UK government would use this, they'll use 256. That is the highest amount of encryption. Now, it doesn't just like double the amount of, like this is really hard to crack. This is like almost impossible. This is impossible pretty much unless you just have the key. So to put it into perspective, it's not double, it's something like, I've written it down in the next slide, I'll get to that in a minute actually. So it's roughly equal to the number of atoms in the universe. That's how many combinations there is. And there's no point even trying to crack it for 190 years, just because computers aren't advanced enough. So yeah, that's never going to be cracked. If you start trying to like brute force your way through it, because back in Caesar's times you could just do all 25 combinations. You're never going to do that many combinations. You'll be long dead before you figure that out. So to put into context, 256-bit, I've written it out as a word because as numbers it just looks ridiculous, it doesn't mean anything. So 340 undecillion, 282 decillion, just ridiculous numbers. To put it into perspective, billion is down here, so just a ridiculous amount. And this is actually 340 billion times harder to crack than 128-bit encryption. So yeah, that's what, just to recap, so encryption is like, that is very hard to crack. Encryption is obviously scrambles your data, makes it unreadable, and its goal is to protect your data. That's all from me. Just wanted to give a quick shout out to my new sponsor. I actually got contacted by Ray. He's a really famous guy. He made an album 12 years ago. You've probably all heard of him. He wants me to sell Raycons. They're just like AirPods, but cheaper. So please click my link in the description so me and Ray can take this business venture to the next level. Right, thank you for listening.